The sun was burning hot that day, the kind of heat that pressed down on a man's shoulders and made every breath feel heavy. Samuel Brenner stood at the fence of the old auction yard 3 miles outside town and felt sweat run down the back of his neck. Dust lifted from the ground with every step people took and clung to his shirt and skin. His mouth was dry, but it was not just from the heat. Everything about this place felt heavy with sadness. The auction yard was not a place for new beginnings. It was where broken things came to be sold. Old wagons with cracked wheels, rusted tools that had seen better days, horses that were too old, too tired, or too unwanted to keep. Samuel knew this place well. He had avoided it for years, but now he was here because he was broken too. For 3 long years, his ranch had been slowly dying. The cattle business was no longer good. The land was drying out, the grass thinner every season. Water was harder to find, and prices kept falling. One by one, his neighbors packed up their wagons and left. They took their families to places where there was more rain, more work, and more hope. Samuel stayed. He stayed because his wife had loved this land. She had planted trees here with her own hands. She had helped build fences and mend barns. Even though she had been gone for 5 years now, taken by a fever no doctor could stop, Samuel could not bring himself to leave. Walking away felt like losing her all over again. But staying came with a cost. He had almost no money left. The bank had already taken 2 pieces of his land. His ranch hand, Tom, had started talking about leaving to find work somewhere else. Samuel did not blame him. There was nothing left to promise anyone here. So Samuel came to the auction yard with one last small hope. In his pocket he carried just $200 in old bills and coins. It was not much, but it was enough to buy 1 horse. 1 decent horse. A horse that could pull wagons, carry supplies, and help him keep the ranch alive just a little longer. The auctioneer stood on the platform shouting numbers. His name was Ridge, a hard man with a loud voice and eyes that missed nothing. One by one, horses were brought out. Strong horses, fast horses, but a black stallion with muscles like stone. A tall brown mare with sharp, knowing eyes. A young red horse that moved like the wind. Samuel watched carefully. He felt each horse with his eyes and heart, but every time the bidding climbed too high. $80, $100, $120. His money would not last long here. His hope began to slip away. Then the gate at the back of the yard opened slowly. Ridge looked down at his paper and frowned. "Last one," he said, his voice flat. "Might as well bring her out." What walked into the yard barely looked like a horse. It was a foal, a baby horse, but smaller than any Samuel had ever seen. Her body was thin, so thin that every bone showed under her dull gray coat. Her legs looked like fragile sticks that might snap under the smallest weight. One ear bent oddly to the side. Her eyes were big, dark, and filled with fear as she looked around, not understanding where she was or why. People in the crowd reacted right away. Some laughed. Others shook their heads and turned away. Ridge did not try to sound excited. "Rejected by her mother," he said. "Born too small, too weak. Bad bloodline. Breeder says she has no future. Who wants to start the bidding?" No one spoke. $5, Ridge tried. Silence. "All right, $3. Nothing. Ridge sighed, his patience gone. $1, he said loudly. "I'll sell her for $1. Samuel could hear the wind moving dust across the yard. Somewhere far off, a horse called out, lonely and scared. Samuel felt his heart beating hard in his chest. "I'll bid," Samuel said suddenly. Ridge looked surprised. $1? "I'll bid 50 cents, Samuel said. People turned to look at him like he had lost his mind. Ridge laughed, but it was not kind. 50 cents? He said, "That's hardly money." "It's all I've got for her," Samuel answered quietly. Ridge looked around one last time. No one else moved. "Going once," Ridge said. "Going twice. Sold. 50 cents. The horse is yours." Samuel walked toward the foal slowly. Up close, she looked even smaller. She was shaking, her breathing fast and shallow. Her eyes locked onto his as he knelt down. He reached out his hand gently and let her smell his fingers. She did not pull away. "It's okay," he whispered. "I've got you now." But sometimes words are all a man has to give. Tom was waiting when Samuel brought the foal back in the wagon, his face filled with shock. "Boss," Tom said. "What is that?" "A horse," Samuel answered. "That's not a horse," Tom said. "That thing won't last the winter. You could have bought a real working horse." Samuel did not argue. He laid straw and blankets in the barn and warmed water for a soft feed the foal could manage. He moved carefully, like she was made of glass. "Sometimes," Samuel said quietly, "the thing that looks most broken needs you the most, and maybe I need something to need me." That night, Samuel sat alone in the barn. He talked softly to the foal about his wife, about the ranch, about everything he had lost. The foal listened. She moved closer and rested her small head near his leg. "I'm going to call you Hope," Samuel whispered. "Not because I believe it yet, but because I need to start somewhere." The foal made a soft sound, and in that quiet barn, Samuel felt something shift deep inside him. Maybe, just maybe, everything was not finished yet. The days after the auction moved slowly, like the desert itself. Each morning, before the sun rose, Samuel walked to the barn with a tight feeling in his chest. Every time he opened the door, he feared what he might find. But every morning Hope was there. She was standing, breathing, alive. That small fact felt like a quiet miracle. Hope did not grow much. Her bones stayed thin, and her body stayed small. But she held on. Samuel fed her carefully, warmed her water, and spoke to her like she could understand every word. Tom watched from a distance at first, shaking his head, certain the effort would end in heartbreak. Weeks passed, then months. Hope's coat began to change. It became smoother and carried a soft shine when the sunlight touched it. Her eyes grew brighter and calmer. Her legs, though still thin, stopped shaking so much. She learned the barn, the yard, and every sound of the ranch. Most of all, she learned Samuel. She followed him everywhere. When Samuel fixed fences, Hope stood nearby watching. When he sat on the porch to eat, she came and stood beside him. When he walked to the well, she walked with him. It was not fear that kept her close. It was something deeper, something that felt like purpose. One afternoon, while Samuel worked on a fence at the edge of the pasture, Hope suddenly froze. Her ears went straight up. Her body went tight like a rope pulled too hard. "What is it, girl?" Samuel asked. Hope stepped away from him and looked back, then turned her head toward the sky. Samuel felt it a moment later. The air had changed. The birds had gone quiet. The silence felt heavy, like something waiting to fall. That night, a violent storm hit the ranch. Wind tore across the land. Rain fell so hard it blurred the world. Lightning split the sky. Samuel rushed to bring the animals inside. Hope was already in the barn, calm and waiting. "How did you know?" Samuel whispered. Hope only breathed softly. It was not the last time. One night, Hope made a sharp sound that pulled Samuel from sleep. He grabbed his rifle and stepped outside. A coyote stood watching the barn from the shadows. Samuel fired a warning shot, and it ran. Another day, Hope refused to drink from the water trough. Samuel checked and found a dead bird floating inside. The water was spoiled. Tom finally spoke one evening. "That foal," he said slowly, "she is not normal." "No," Samuel agreed, "she is not. She's broken," Tom said, then paused. "But not the way we thought." As winter passed, Hope became more than an animal. She became company. She became comfort. On nights when Samuel thought about his wife and felt the weight of missing her too much to bear, Hope came close and rested her head against him until the pain eased. Spring came quietly, grass pushed through the dirt, birds returned. The land felt like it was waking up. But Hope grew restless. One morning, Samuel found her pacing near the gate. Her eyes were sharp, her body tense. "What is it?" he asked. Hope pushed against the gate and looked toward the open desert. "You want to go out?" Samuel asked. She made a soft but urgent sound. Samuel opened the gate. Hope did not run. She walked straight toward the old saddle hanging in the barn. She stopped and looked back at him. Tom stared. "Boss, that horse cannot carry you." "I know," Samuel said, "but I think she wants me to trust her." Samuel used only a blanket and rope. He climbed carefully onto Hope's back. She did not stumble. She walked forward, steady and sure. But she did not head toward the pasture. She walked into the desert. The land stretched wide and empty. Rocks, dust, heat. Samuel's water ran low. Still, Hope walked on. Her steps were careful, confident. "Where are you taking me?" Samuel asked. Hope did not stop. The ground changed. Deep cuts in the earth appeared ahead. A canyon. Hope stopped at the edge. Samuel climbed down and looked. A man lay below on a narrow trail, still, bleeding. Samuel's heart raced. He climbed down carefully and knelt beside the man. The stranger was badly hurt, shot, burning with fever. "I've got you," Samuel said, even though he was not sure it was true. Getting the man back up was slow and painful. Hope waited above, still and patient. Samuel made a hard choice. He lifted the injured man onto Hope's back. Her legs shook. Samuel held his breath. "You can do this," he whispered. Hope walked. Slow, steady, unbreakable. By sunset, they reached the ranch. The man lived. His name was Jacob Mercer, a scout, shot for carrying the truth. He spoke of stolen land, stolen water. Powerful men working together to crush small ranchers. Samuel listened with growing anger. The ledger, buried in the canyon. Days later, Jacob lived. The fever broke. The truth came out, and hope had started it all. Samuel sat with her in the barn one night, his hand resting on her neck. "You were never wrong," he said. "You were never weak." Hope breathed softly, and the barn felt warm and full. But Samuel did not yet know how far her path would lead him or how dangerous the truth would become. That was still waiting in the desert. The desert did not forgive easily. Samuel learned that in the days after Jacob Mercer spoke of the ledger and the men who wanted him dead, the land looked the same, wide and quiet, but something unseen had shifted. Riders appeared on distant ridges where no riders belonged. Dust trails crossed the horizon and vanished. Samuel felt watched, and Hope felt it too. She stayed closer than ever, her ears turning at every sound, her body always ready. Jacob stayed hidden at the doctor's house while his wounds healed. The fever broke slowly, like it did not want to give him back. Each day Samuel visited, bringing food, water, and quiet company. Jacob spoke little, saving his strength, but when he did speak, it was about the truth. He knew the names in the ledger. He knew what Judge Harrison and the others would do if they found out Jacob was still alive. "They will come," Jacob said one evening, his voice low. "Men like that always do." Samuel nodded. He believed it. The plan to return to the canyon was made quietly. Tom did not argue this time. He packed supplies and checked rifles without complaint. At dawn, they rode out, moving slow and careful. Hope walked beside Samuel, small but steady, as if she understood the importance of what they were doing. The canyon looked the same, but it felt different now. The rocks seemed sharper, the shadows deeper. Jacob pointed to the place where he had buried the ledger. Samuel moved stones aside until his hands touched leather wrapped in oilcloth. When he lifted it free, the weight surprised him. Paper should not feel that heavy. They did not ride straight to town. Jacob insisted on caution. They traveled at night and rested during the day. They changed routes and avoided roads. Once, shots cracked the air behind them. Bullets hit stone. Hope did not panic. She moved when she needed to move and stopped when stopping mattered. Samuel trusted her without question. When they finally reached the territorial capital, Jacob went alone to the authorities. Samuel waited outside with Hope. Hours passed, then more hours. At last, Jacob returned. his face pale but determined. "They listened," he said. "Now we wait." Waiting was harder than riding through danger. Samuel returned to the ranch unsure of what would come next. Days passed, then weeks. Then, one morning a rider arrived with news. Judge Harrison had been arrested. The sheriff followed. Wealthy ranch owners were taken from their homes. The ledger had done its work. The trial moved fast. Samuel did not attend. He stayed with Hope. He felt no need to watch powerful men fall. What mattered was what came after. Letters arrived slowly at first. Official papers. Notices. Apologies written in stiff language. Land that had been taken was returned. Water rights restored. Payments promised for lost years. Samuel read each letter carefully, hardly believing what his eyes saw. The ranch changed. Grass returned where dirt had ruled. Water flowed again through dry channels. Samuel bought cattle slowly, carefully, afraid to hope too fast. Neighbors began to come back. Families returned to land they thought was lost forever. The town filled with voices again. Hope remained small. Her legs never thickened. Her back never grew strong enough for work. The vet was right about that. But no one spoke of her as broken anymore. They spoke of her with quiet respect. Jacob returned one winter afternoon. Snow covered the land, soft and clean. He looked stronger now, though his shoulder still held pain. "They offered me a position," he said by the fire. "Head of scouts for the territory." Samuel listened. "I told them yes," Jacob continued, "but I told them I would need help. Quiet help. From people who know the land and care about what happens to it." Samuel nodded slowly. "I will help," he said, "but I am staying here." "That is exactly what I hoped you would say," Jacob replied. After Jacob left, Samuel walked with Hope through the snow. The world was silent, the kind of silence that feels full instead of empty. Hope's small hooves left careful prints beside his boots. "You changed everything," Samuel said softly, "and you never asked for anything." Hope pressed closer, warm and steady. The ranch survived, Samuel survived, and the foal that cost 50 cents became something more than a horse. She became proof that strength does not always look the way the world expects. She became proof that broken things can still lead the way. On cold mornings, Samuel still woke before the sun and walked to the barn. Hope was always there, waiting. She always would be.